Okay, if you'd like to join us, dear Heavenly Precious Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come today and serve the people of this great county. That we're making some changes and things that we never thought we'd have to deal with. God, we just pray that you give us the guidance and wisdom to complete them to the best health of our employees, our citizens, and ourselves. Help us in this meeting make the best decisions for this county, and in your holy and precious name we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning from our spaced out commission meeting. I did push play, I promise. I'll call this meeting of May 20th, 2020 of the Nicholas County Commission to the order. If one of you would like to get started there.
Upon review of the commission meeting minutes of May 6, 2020 regular meeting, I move that we approve.
Okay, the motion is on the floor. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those against, the motion does carry.
Upon review of the exonerations as presented by the Nicholas County Assessor, I move to approve accordingly.
The motion is on the floor. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those against, the motion does carry.
Upon review of the estate and fiduciary matters as presented by the Nicholas County Clerk, move to approve accordingly unless otherwise noted.
Okay, any discussion? The motion is on the floor. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion does carry.
Upon submission of the budget revisions received from the elected official and department heads, the commission will take appropriate action as deemed necessary.
Okay, the motion is on the floor. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion against does carry.
Upon review of the invoices submitted by various departmental offices, the commission will take the appropriate action as deemed necessary.
Okay, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those against, the motion does carry. We do have terms of office expiring. Anyone for E911 Advisory Board? I don't have anyone. Okay, and then for the Birch River Public Service District. And we do have a recommendation here.
I just need to-
You talked to Bill. Okay. Is there a motion on the Birch River Public Service District appointment?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay.
We kindly went, we got a recommendation here from the people at the Birch River Public Service District, and their recommendation is Alvin Rose. I'd like to nominate him to serve a 6-year term on the Birch River Public Service District, replacing Curtis Mike Davis.
Okay. The motion is on the floor. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, motion does carry.
Okay.
Also at 9 o'clock, we do have at the request of Commissioner Atkins, discussion concerning airport. Commissioner?
Okay. The airport, I've been on this committee now, I'm working on my 4th year, and we've been struggling to get anything done with lack of monetary input. And we have, we're just really struggling. The city of Summersville has put up $25,000 to help get this airport going again. And I'm asking that the commission match that. My suggestion is that we do $12,500 this year and $12,500 next, but it's whatever the commission wants to do there.
Would you get
And that way, there are so many things that with the FAA, if we can have some money, 5,000 can turn it into 100. The FAA will put 90 and the state will put 5. And the money we've been bringing in is basically $12,500 a year from the state, and what little bit of rent we get. there's a loan to the NRGA for $500 a month. The utilities are paying for mowing, and we just don't have anything to do anything with. It's just, we're just struggling. I mean, there's a lot of effort going, but there's no money being applied to this for several years by the commission. And I'm asking them to step up to the plate and let's get something done there.
Commissioner Atkins is the airport commission authority is asking for 12.5 this year, 12.5 next year, for general purpose and along with, I guess, for the fuel.
Well, fuel will be part of it.
Yeah.
There's trees that need to be cut. We just, with the FAA, you have to go through the process of getting stuff done to get money. You have to advertise for a consultant engineer. We've done that part. We've gone through the interviews. We've selected one, and that's the proper way so that you can do what you need to do properly. And of course, they only get paid when the money comes through with the grants that we give. Okay, but still, there's some matching money that we have to put up front a little bit to help do some things there.
The 100,000 comes from the federal government.
Well,
Or he's talking about 95.5.
yeah, it's 95.5.
Yeah.
Or 90 and then 5 and then 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, Braxton County is in the process of they're doing an 8-bay hangar down there that with the COVID thing, the federal government picked up 100% for it.
Oh, really?
Okay, and we had a project going that would have been covered 100% this year. And it is one of those things that if we're going to do this, we need to step up and do it, or else, back away. And, because there's been some discussion about the city of Somerville taking them over. And we don't want to put some money into it, but I think it would be better if it was a joint thing. They put some money in, we put some money in.
Well, I appreciate the city of Somersville's help because that's something they definitely don't have to do. $25,000 is a big ask that they were willing to deliver on, but I do prefer that the commission does hold the lease. And I think that we can take this more serious. If the city's willing to help, that's even better. With it being our airport authority and so on, I think it'd be best to stick with the county.
I'll be willing to look into it. I mean, I'm not going to jump on it right now because we got a few other things more pressing, but I mean, the airport is important, but it's not, to me, it's not as important as the other county business right now.
Can we, if we do this, or when we do this, or whatever, can we take that out of economic development?
You can if you all think it's for economic.
Yeah.
It's in a fund called coal reallocated.
Right.
Coal service tax.
Yeah.
But you can use that if you think it's economic.
Okay. Is that something we want to place on the next agenda or take action?
I would put it on the next agenda.
Next agenda? Is that okay, Commissioner Neal?
Yeah, that's fine with
Okay.
me because I've already had
Kick it
several
over.
people calling. I mean, I guess the community already knew about this coming up, so I've had several people calling me about it. It's not all that great interested in putting taxpayers' money into the airport. I mean, so I got to look at it both ways.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other general business before we get to, we still have a few more minutes.
That's fine.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll take a recess.
Okay.
Okay, now, I requested our Director, Sean Wolford of the Nicholas County Homeland Security and Emergency Management Office to come in and just give us a quick coronavirus update. Just whatever he felt would be good for us to know with everything going forward right now. So, Sean.
Good morning, appreciate the opportunity. Of course, a lot of stuff's been in the news. Most of all the guidance for the counties either come from federal or state level, so that's pretty well in the news as to what is open, isn't open, things of that nature. So I just want to give some updates as to some of the supplies that have been coming into the county, some of the different organizations that have been participating. Obviously, we've been getting a lot of PPE and various cleaning supplies, sanitizer, things of that nature in. That's been through the state of West Virginia, the State Office of Homeland Security, Emergency Management, and Coordinated National Guard typically delivers that. But that comes on a bi-weekly basis, so I was trying to count earlier, but some of it's almost uncountable. But as far as like simple surgical masks, we've easily received well over 10 to 15,000, I think, of those. So obviously they're more, one-time use, things of that nature. N95 masks, I think we've got well over 1,000 of those. So pretty much every public safety officer, first responder in the county should have at minimum access to at least 2 of those. We've been able to get supplies for various county and city offices, food pantries, Board of Education, even a few businesses. So it's been a pretty good supply. And was just talking to Mary outside there. At this point, we've pretty much received everything that we've needed. We haven't received everything we've asked for, but we've received what we needed to meet our needs at this point. So that's been good so far. I don't know what the end date is for that bi-weekly program. They've been looking to set some parameters on it and kind of scale back on who can request supplies through that. At some point over the coming weeks, it's going to slowly scale back from general business offices, general government offices, to getting more focused on public safety and healthcare. So that's stuff that's probably going to happen over the coming weeks, and those offices and agencies may have to transition towards sourcing their own product or looking at other options. So that's stuff that once we get the guidance, we'll kind of know where we're going from there. We've received, I think it's good to note, we've received private donations. One of the earliest on was the Isaiah Morgan Distillery here just north of town. Donated a large quantity of sanitizer to law enforcement, fire departments across the county. So you've seen a lot of private businesses step up and either begin to produce for sale, or in that case, just simply donate. So you've seen food pantries kind of ramp up their game to provide food. You've seen churches and organizations provide meals to people that maybe can't get out, provide grocery delivery. So on and on and on. It's, you've just seen this across the county, people stepping up just like they do in any type of disaster. Of course, this is a little different. You can't see this disaster, but still, I think it's good to note the response of the communities. They're stepping up, they're doing what they need to do, and I think that needs to be commended. As far as kind of coordination, different things, we're doing weekly conference calls with most agencies, healthcare providers across the county. We, again, have everything from public safety to our healthcare providers, Board of Education, government officials, even private industry officials have been on those on occasion. So those have continued. We have one again today, and at least one through next week, kind of getting to that point to decide whether those need to continue or become an as-needed basis. So that's kind of a good thing, means the situation's kind of stabilized. Looking at the numbers, those are the pretty obvious thing. We know the big number, of course, is the 9 positive cases we've had in the county up to this point. And of those 9 cases, unfortunately, there's been 1 death attributed to it of a county resident. But we only have 1 active case right now. So that means that 7 of those cases are fully recovered, good to go. And of those 9 total cases, not counting the one that resulted in a death, of those 8 remaining, every single one have been extremely minor or asymptomatic. So there you see that broad difference in what this virus does. There's very little in between. It's either minor and asymptomatic or the complete opposite. So that's kind of those struggles, I think, that doctors and healthcare is trying to figure out what this virus truly does. As of yesterday evening, there have been 622 tests conducted on county residents. So looking at those numbers, if you take those numbers and put them on the overall population of the county, we've had 2.5% of our citizens tested. Up to this point, it's pretty much been tested as needed, whether you have contact or symptoms or whatever. I think you're going to start seeing that broadening out as things are moving forward. More and more people will get tested, whether they need it or not. Camden Family Health, as of last Wednesday, during our conference call, had begun to do the antibody testing. SRMC was working to get to that point. So you're going to start seeing people tested for antibodies if they've had it and maybe not even known about it. But 2.5% of our county residents have been tested, and if you break that down even further, of the 9 positive cases, that shows that we have 0.036% infection rate, so 0.03% infection rate. Pretty low, so sometimes we don't need to get caught up on the numbers themselves. Those will keep rising the more tests happen, all that. But if you look at that simple number, 0.03%, that's a pretty low infection rate. So I think that's one of those things that we need to. People can kind of have the tendency to look at the negative and the worst case scenario, skies falling scenario. But if you look at those numbers, it's not as bad as it could be. A lot of people have questioned, well, maybe that's because of the precautions that are taken. And then the other side is, well, maybe we didn't need to take them at all. So, those are questions that scientists and doctors can answer on down the line, but that's just the here and now of where we're at the moment. So that's pretty much where we've at. Of course, our staff, our offices have been working throughout this. That's pretty much it at the moment. I'm certainly open to any questions, but that's the nut and bolts of what's going on in the county at the moment.
Very good.
Thank you, Sean.
You don't have any questions, but appreciate your coming in. Okay.
I'm good. I'm ready when y'all are.
Okay, we're here now with Sheriff William Nunley with the approval to apply for West Virginia Court Security Grant for Security Lock System for Courthouse and Annex in the amount of $47,926. So, Sheriff?
Yes, I am here today to request permission to apply for the courthouse security grant. As you know, the past 2 years we've applied for it. We've obtained duress alarms, as well as security camera system updated. So the last leg of this to secure the courthouse will be all new door locks, which, as you all know, the current key system we have is out of date. We're not able to get keys made, so what we have is what we have. So we're in dire need of updating this system to be able to secure the courthouse, the doorways, to be able to control them. And this system here will not only control the doorways, but will actually scan and record and timestamp who will be accessing doorways, especially after hours or during hours that the doors don't have the access. So it's kind of a safety thing for everybody in the courthouse, but for our judges in particular. So we're here today to request permission to apply for that.
And I didn't mention, we do have also from the probation office, David Sells, if you need to chime in at any time. Sorry about that.
The only thing I can say, you couldn't ask for it at a better time. As many times I've pulled my keys in and out the last 2 or 3
Yeah,
times.
yeah. Those locks, I'm getting worried.
Well,
It's kind of loose.
those locks
So-
and those keys are a little bit contrary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're getting that way, yeah.
They
Yeah.
really are.
Yeah, the one on my office door, you really gotta finagle and jiggle sometimes to get it to work.
You can't get it to do anything, then you can't get it out.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, all you need is just a motion of approval.
Need a motion of
Everything you need
approval.
signed.
We have the packet together. It'll just need your all's approval and signature.
Is there a motion to approve the application of this grant by the sheriff and also the probation?
I'll make that approved.
Okay. Okay. There's a motion on the floor for approval of the West Virginia Court Security Grant for the security lock system for courthouse and annex in the amount of $47,926. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion does carry. Very good. Well, thank you both for coming in.
Thank you, Commissioners. That's all I have today.
Very good.
I think all this here.
Okay, now we have in the matter of Hinkle Mountain Little Laurel broadband expansion. We have with us Cassandra Lawson, Senior Project Specialist with Region 4. Development Council, we have Craig Murphy and Eric Price with Thompson and Litton, and Clint Bischoff is here in person, the counsel for the commission. And as I just mentioned to Cassie, we have a follow-up to concerns expressed by Commission Council on the pole attachment agreement between Mon Power Company and the Nicholas County Commission. So Cassie, if you'd like to go from there.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. So there were some concerns expressed at the last meeting, and since that time, I think we've been able to successfully address those. We have coordinated with our professionals there at Thompson and Litton, and also with Council Bischoff, and I think where we are is in, and Clint probably do better to this, but I think where we are is within the agreement there are some provisions for insurance that we expect the internet service provider to actually hold those insurance policies, and so long as First Energy agrees to that concept, it sounds like Mr. Bischoff is comfortable with the Commission executing the agreement. So if all of that is correct and accurate, then we would ask if the Commission could approve the agreement contingent on Mon Power accepting those terms.
Okay, thank you for that update.
Is Clint there with you?
Yes, he is present.
Okay. Clint, does all that sound correct?
Yes, Commissioners, it's good to see you. Senior Policy Analyst Lawson, I will take over from here based on our conversations. Gentlemen, I've reviewed this pole attachment agreement between Mon Power and the Nicholas County Commission. We'll just call Mon Power First Energy because that's the Mon Power is a subsidy of First Energy. So when I say First Energy, I'm talking about Mon Power. This contract is a fairly standard contract in the sense that Mon Power has an asset that the Commission wants to enable or use for the purpose of running broadband cable and internet wire. The agreement itself is very straightforward. I've been through each paragraph and have made notes about each paragraph. The issue that we have that the Commission will have to make a decision on perhaps today if the Commission feels it's appropriate is that in paragraph 20 the agreement calls for the leasee, which would be right now, which would be the County Commission. The lessor is required, which of course is First Energy, is requiring a number of insurance policies be in place, and these are insurance policies including a commercial general liability policy, which is just sort of a garden variety policy that would cover completed product, completed work, independent contractors, and they're looking for a policy with a minimum of $2 million per occurrence in that contract, in that policy. They're also looking for an auto liability policy that would cover any vehicles involved in any of this work, kind of from start to finish, and they're looking for a policy with $1 million per occurrence with that. They're looking for sort of a standard workers' compensation policy, which of course is an issue for the Commission because we are in a separate category with workers' compensation given the governmental nature of the County Commission and its employees. And then finally, they are asking for First Energy to be issued a policy in their name and they as the beneficiary, just sort of a general liability policy with $1 million per occurrence coverage. Now, our problem with all those different insurance policies that they want is that we know as a commission we have one policy. We are covered under BRIM, and our policy limit with BRIM is $1 million, okay? So when I was speaking to Ms. Lawson, we were trying to figure out a way to to not, go to First Energy and say, well, we can't do that, we can't provide that. But what we were thinking about was if we could get First Energy to turn this pole attachment agreement into almost a bridge contract between ultimately First Energy and the internet service provider, ISP. Internet service providers would be the ones that would be able to acquire these policies and would frankly have more than enough resources to do that. And I would imagine that's just what they do in the normal course of business. So where we are with the policy today, or this issue, Ms. Lawson is asking that an agreement be made with First Energy in the sense that we offer to them, or Region 4 offer to them, an opportunity to contract directly with an ISP and basically have the ISP address these issues of extra insurance, because frankly I just don't know what we would do to call Brim and say, well, we need all this extra coverage, and I don't even think we could buy it if we wanted to. I think Brim would say, no, we don't offer that. You have to remember, gentlemen, this is the first project like this in the state, so we're kind of blazing new grounds here. But given the carrot on the end of the stick for the ISPs, which is they get to run internet to people, which they can charge money for, Ms. Lawson and I believe that will be enticing to them to enter into that part of the contract directly with First Energy. What we're trying to do, we as a commission are trying to separate our liability out from First Energy and any ISPs. That's what I always say to you gentlemen is we're trying to get rid of the liability. So if the commission, and I'll let Ms. Lawson follow up with this, if the commission would be willing to consider an agreement in the sense that we would go back to First Energy or Region 4 would go back to First Energy and say, modify the agreement so these insurance policies can be directly contracted with the ISPs. I think that's where we are today. As far as the application fee, and Ms. Lawson can speak to this, they will pay that, so it won't cost us any money. What we're trying to do is to get this going, but if we can push a lot of the requirements in this proposed pole attachment agreement concerning liability and indemnity and insurance policies, and just put that something between First Energy and an internet service provider, that would benefit the Nicholas County Commission, but it also benefits our citizens, because that's going to bring reliable internet to a lot of citizens in this county, which is just, to me, is, and I know you gentlemen know this, is sort of the foundation for what we need to move this county forward. So that's where we are. Ms. Lawson, I'll let you follow up with my comments if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. No, I think that really accurately captures the situation, and I'm not sure that I really have much else to add. Following this particular item, we will have a resolution for your consideration. It will include that permit fee. As Mr. Bischoff explained, that will come out of the grant. There are ample funds to pay for that expense. So that is not something that the commission will be asked to pay up front. But what we'll do is, it's just like we're doing now, is we'll just hold that contingent upon First Energy agreeing to the very terms that we discussed.
So Cassie, this is Commissioner Cole. Just so I understand, we don't, do we need any action taken on the concerns expressed, or will that be taken care of in the resolution? I just want to make sure we don't miss anything that you all need to move forward.
What it seems now that's needed is a motion from the commission to approve the agreement contingent on First Energy agreeing to the terms as it relates to the insurance policy. Mr. Bischoff, does that sound correct?
I would concur with that, Ms. Lawson.
Okay. Perfect.
I don't know that we can hand that down, can we?
Commissioner Neal, I'm not sure I understand.
Well, what it is, I mean, we're the grant holder on the whole shebang.
And we own the infrastructure.
We own everything. Now, I don't think we can do this. Now, we might do it this way. Whoever's going to get at this outfit, we may do the same agreement that First Energy's wanting to do with us. I mean, if we step out here on this here and we hand it over to these guys and they screw it up, we're going to be responsible for it.
Well, and you're not. I understand what you're saying, and the other path that Ms. Lawson and I talked about going down would be something that you're familiar with. If you have a building project and you have an owner and you hire a contractor, and then the owner and the contractor put a contract together, that liability is going to shift to the contractor. But that contractor is going to hire subcontractors, and then that contractor is just going to shift that liability down to the subcontractors. Right. So in that scenario, the owner's First Energy, we are the contractor, and our potential internet service provider would be the subcontractor. So I am all for liability just sort of, going downhill, so to speak, to somebody else. What we're talking about doing is getting together a general agreement where we don't hold any of the liability right now and then investigate whether or not there's an internet service provider that, number one, is interested and ready to invest in the infrastructure of this project, and along with that, take on the liability. Because you got to remember, their carrot on the end of the stick is, hey, this is more business we can do, and we got to spend money to make money. But Commissioner Cole, your concerns are very valid in that we don't want to be the ones left holding the bag. So, like I said, we're talking about a bridge agreement that would at least get our foot in the door. But if we can avoid or shift the liability directly to an ISP, and then have that agreement say that we hold the Nicholas County Commission harmless or indemnify us, that would be ideal. But that's something that we wanted to have the meeting today to discuss before that was investigated by Ms. Lawson and the other gentleman.
Mrs. Lawson, I have a question. Is the maintenance of the lines and the pole attachments and however, isn't that the responsibility of the internet service provider once they get the contract through the commission?
Yes, they will be held responsible for all the operation and maintenance. You don't want to put the position, the commission in a position where, you would ever get a call that, hey, this line is down. That all of that responsibility will be shifted to the internet service provider.
Commissioner Colmea?
Yes.
And to speak to that, Ms. Lawson, and we talked about this contract that is proposed right now, there's no other way to say it. It is written in favor of First Energy. They have a product. We want to use it, so they're going to make it so it is to their advantage. If we got into a contract with an internet service provider, we would almost just use this as a basis for what we want our contract to say, which is, hey, internet service provider, you're responsible for everything. Maintenance, costs, taxes, liability, hold us harmless, indemnify us, indemnify any, county assignee or agent. This is all on you now. And of course, again, their incentive would be, all right, well, we're going to make money doing this. So what Ms. Lawson said is absolutely correct. In fact, I think I told her at some point we could even just use this proposed agreement as our agreement with an ISP if we went that route, because it's written in favor of First Energy. We would almost, some of them, we could just swap out the names. And the internet service providers, they're not going to have I don't see a lot of resistance to this because this is sort of the standard, this is how they do business. They're used to taking on the maintenance and the other liability that comes with running, broadband internet. So,
And then I asked a question of our administrative assistant, Ms. Neff. Now, I think that I agree with Cassie and John and Clint's contingencies here. But worst case, do I understand you that we already do kind of carry insurances of that
Yes, we do.
type?
We have a $1 million plus a $2 million umbrella.
Okay. So I guess there's kind of like a backup.
well,
Unless we vote to do just as First Energy agrees.
right, and I think what we're talking about, that policy would be our policy through BRIM. But again, paragraph 20 is looking for very specific, separate and distinct policies that cover stuff that frankly we don't want to get in the business of covering, like covering their independent contractors. Commission doesn't want to do that. I mean, we have no control over them, but yet we've got to insure them. So, or if First Energy were to act negligently, they want a whole separate policy that just protects them and names them as the beneficiary. I don't think that's in the interest of the commission, but I'm not saying it's unreasonable. It's just how they do business. But I agree with Ms. Neff's assessment of what we have at least
It's
available
just
to us
not
right now.
necessarily. They want this on top of that.
They
basically.
want BRIM, and then they want these other 4 policies. Yes, sir.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. Okay. Okay. Cassie, do you have anything else to add?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
The only other thing that I can think of to say is that the commission would be entering into this now, but before construction would go to bid and any fiber would ever actually be installed on these poles, this liability issue would be sorted out.
Okay. Does anyone like to take action on this proposal?
I don't think we can pass the buck myself, so that's what we're doing. If we're gonna do it, we should do the same thing First Energy. They can't hang a wire until we say so. I think it's gonna come back on us, because I contract all the time. I don't think we can pass the buck. And that's what we're doing.
Cassie, does Region 4 have an official opinion on that, or is that something we just need to rely on our legal counsel, or is there something that you could add on top of that?
We really have to rely on legal counsel and just other experiences throughout the state, what other people have encountered. For further consultation, we could also talk to the Broadband Enhancement Council, which is an organization that is tasked with furthering broadband throughout the entire state. The Development Office, which is providing the funds, has also been a really important partner. And our consultants who have experience with broadband not only in West Virginia but Virginia as well. So we would look to all of those folks for any further clarification.
Is Eric still on this line here? Eric, this is Commissioner Atkins. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Ian, do you have any experience with anything like this in Virginia?
Ian,
Or any prior experience with something like this?
and I know it's taking place quite often through the public-private partnership, but I've not been down in the weeds as far as, the liability and insurance requirements being directly passed on to the internet service provider, although I'm sure that's what's happening because none of the public bodies that I'm familiar with would take on that liability or that risk. So again, I think the goal here is to execute is contingent upon First Energy accepting that. And we're trying to work with First Energy to get their understanding and their, I guess, buy-in on the way that this is going to work. But I'm actually going to try to get maybe even copies of agreements or at least the gist of some agreements with other localities and be able to pass that on.
Cassie, how time sensitive is this exact action that we're looking at right now?
I'm going to pass that off to Eric.
Okay.
Did you ask that again? I didn't.
How time sensitive it is that we come to a decision on this specific matter over the contingencies we're discussing?
Okay, so to let you know, this is the master agreement between the county commission and First Energy. It basically sets all the parameters, and then, for lack of a better term, for each project, i.e. the Eagle Mountain project, there'll be another either memorandum of understanding or a sub-agreement that ties to this, that outlines each pole and all the requirements of that particular project. So this is the first step to get to actually having a board or authorization to be on the poles. As far as timeliness, again, we've not issued the RFP or the ISP yet, so that is probably the critical path with the ISP and working out some logistics with the agreement with the ISP. So, if we're talking another 2 weeks, is that correct on the next meeting?
Probably 3. Because we're meeting the second Wednesday in June.
Yeah, we'll be June 10th because of the election being moved. It'll actually be the 10th of June is our next meeting.
And I'm going to ask Craig Murphy on the call with us. I'm going to ask for his input on this as well to see if he thinks another 2 weeks is okay to get all these things on.
Table and let them try and figure it out.
I think that's a good time to get it ironed out. I'm guessing the delay by First Energy getting back to me on some questions about the insurance is probably them consulting with their inside legal counsel.
And I'll add, I've been introduced to First Energy General Counsel, his name's Gary Jack, and I may just reach out to him directly. He's kind of First Energy's point man with office broadband. So I'll reach out to Gary and let him know what we're doing. And this is kind of blazing the trail. And then so I think it's an okay thing to table it and come back on June 10th with all the facts and all the everything ready to go.
Sounds good. I appreciate your willingness to do that. I'll go ahead and move just to go ahead and table this. Not because of a lack of confidence in the work that you all have done, but because, like you just said, we're blazing a trail here. And if we mess this one up, we could mess this up for the entire state. And that's not a liability I'm comfortable in taking. And I'm assuming that the commission either, when it comes to just making sure we're doing the right thing with this particular liability. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
So, and that'll be on the June 10th agenda. Now, Kathy, does that mess up your resolution number 8, or is that something we can go ahead and do now?
So, let me ask this question. Eric, we have an invoice for resolution number 8 for Thompson and Litton for your services in April. Is it important that we go ahead and we get that process? We can approve the resolution with just that invoice and remove the others. Or is it okay if we wait until that next meeting to process that?
If it was up to me, I'd say go ahead and wait, but I've also talked to some CNL, they want to see some things. So if you could, modify that resolution, to approve that invoice, that way we can get, they can get rolling, I would appreciate it. But at the same time, I'm not gonna fight you on what you do.
Well, with that said, Mr. Cole, we would recommend that we go ahead and move forward with resolution number 8.
Move forward, is that what she said? Okay, okay. And where that, under permits, on resolution 8, says the first energy pole permit fee of $1,000. Is that something we want to hold back on, or go ahead and pay that also? I mean, they'll have to do it eventually.
That one is a budget amendment request.
Yeah. I apologize, yeah, so we need to pass this as is. I apologize, Cassie, I was mistaken. So ignore that comment.
But you still need to do that. It can go into the work
Okay,
session.
do we have any action on the resolution 8 while we were discussing it?
Yeah, as far as the motion to go forward with it? Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay. The motion is on the floor to approve of Richwood Broadband Expansion Resolution number 8. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against, the motion does carry. And then Cassie, I do have here the Richwood Broadband Expansion Budget Amendment.
Yes, we would also ask that that be considered now as well. What we are doing is the commission actually received 2 separate grants for this project. It's all from the same pot of money, but technically they are 2 separate grants. So what we're doing is utilizing the grant that was made early on to pay for costs that are associated with pre-development, paying for permits, paying legal fees and that sort of thing. So the overall budget does not change. We're just pigeonholing the line items a little bit differently. And also as the project has developed, some things have, some costs have been clarified, but we're not really anticipating much accounting now, so we just removed that. Permits and fees have been increased. Land acquisition has been increased. Construction has been increased a little bit. Engineering has been adjusted. But as stated, overall, the budget is the same.
Okay.
The total.
So we'll do a motion on that too.
Yeah, I'll wait till Gary comes
Okay.
back in. Okay.
This ain't gonna change the final cost. This is only,
It's all part of it.
okay.
Yeah. I make the motion that we go ahead and approve this amendment request.
Okay, the motion is on the floor to approve the Richwood Broadband Expansion Budget Agreement. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion does carry. And Kathy, I believe that's it for today, right?
That's correct. If I could circle back really quickly to the resolution,
Sure.
we'll update that, to remove that permit fee. I can do that really quickly. Could I get that emailed over to Mary and have her print out an updated copy? That way it's a little bit clearer.
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. We will get on that right now. We'll have that ready for you gentlemen to sign before we leave today.
Very good. Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you, Cassie.
Here's some other paperwork that's going to
Okay.
sign off.
We don't need any action on this, right?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's nothing else, Cassandra and Eric and Clint and Craig, thank you all for calling in.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
And while I have you on the phone, this is Patty. Is 10 o'clock good for you on the 10th?
Sure. Good for me.
And hopefully everybody will be able to come in on that day.
Yeah.
Understand things easier.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Okay, we'll go on recess. Okay, now we're here for the appointment at the request of Commissioner Neal, revisit mobile radio communication problems and bring about resolution. So Commissioner Neal, I'll let you start the discussion.
Well, what this is all about is our police officers they're not happy with the radios that we're providing. Almost a year ago, we started out with some radios that were supposed to be the top of the line, do great, do all this stuff. Well, they're not doing it. The IRP part of it is working great. The conventional part of it, which we need the worst, is just not getting it. And these guys ain't happy, and I'm not happy either, because that's a lifeline for these county police officers. Now, I've talked to the city. Theirs seems to be working all right, but they're not going nowhere. They're in a confined area. Richwood, I talked to them. Theirs seem to be working fine. And the people in the fire departments, most of them's all happy, but our county officers are not happy. They're not going to put the Kingwoods in, and we're going to have some Motorola radios. Now, I did talk to some of the officers, and I talked to Kuchar and the sheriff. They're willing to put the old radios back in because they did work good, but they would like to have new handheld radios. All new handheld radios, because we tested them. Sean got me some. We tested them, and the Motorola's, they worked in most all buildings and houses that we went in, where they had our paper server. If he went in someone's home, he made it a point to call in while he was inside the house to make sure the radio worked proper. So I'm willing to, and they're willing, and I'm willing, and I think Billy or the sheriff and Kuchar, if we put the Motorola radios back in the county cars and buy all new handheld radios for our police or county police officers, I'm willing to go along. I mean, is that fair to say, Sheriff?
Yeah, I believe that, there is some underlying issues with those new Kenwood radios. I myself have not done a lot of testing with them, but just getting feedback from the deputies. What they tell me that they're not comfortable with them. If they're not comfortable with them, I'm not in a position to utilize something that they're not comfortable with. When you're talking about having to communicate, a radio frequency to get backup, or to call in a pursuit, or a violent criminal activity that's occurring. I'm not in a position to put them in a spot like that. And when they tell me that the old Motorola radios actually work just as well or better than the new ones, my position is on let's just keep the Motorola's for now. Look at something else down the road. I know Chief Kuchar, he's been in contact with the guys a lot more than I have on this, because he's been in the forefront on this, talking to them, looking at them, talking about what works and what's not working with these radios. But I do know the feedback that I've received that they're not performing at a level that they should be for the funds that we put out for them. So Chief, you have anything on that?
Just the guys I've talked to, a lot of them, all of them say the IRP works great. Anywhere you go, the IRP's working. Conventional, they're having problems with it. I set up a little site on our in-house app here, and like Jerry Hall, I was talking to him the other day, and he put this on there. He said that he couldn't get out on conventional. He said 209 was right in front of him in his car, and he couldn't hear him. He couldn't communicate with the dispatch. He says when you take the mic off the hook, it automatically blocks on that channel and you can't scan. So if you're talking to somebody on another channel and you take the mic up, then yours is locked on channel 2 and he's on tower 3. You can't hear him. And he said if his concern was if you were in a pursuit or something like that, you don't put your mic down back on the hook when you're so you hold it in your lap. You pick it up and then you got to fumble around trying to get it back on the scan again. Stuff like that, which is probably something that could be fixed on that, I don't know. But their main concern is conventional. When you got a guy in front of you and you're trying to talk to him on conventional, he can't hear you, or dispatch can't hear you. I think that's a major problem.
We do have with us Sheriff William Nunley, Chief Kuchar, and also our OES Director, Sean Wolford. Before, Sean, I'd like to ask you to speak, but before you do, am I under the right understanding this grant was specifically for the in-car radios, that we couldn't use this for the handhelds?
Correct. The original grant I submitted was for mobiles and portables both.
Yes.
They do not allow portables even now under those grant funds, so they cut us down to mobiles only, and then even cut that money down to 150. So we had to be cost effective in using what they gave us to provide radios for every law agency in the county, which is what the grant was for.
I will note that I have been in contact with a couple other counties as well, and the issue that lies with RRP, just to kind of understand the RRP, you can talk to a lot of people all across the state. It works fine in that aspect, but the problem is when you go inside a home or a confined area, RRP doesn't work, and it doesn't work in other counties either. They've got to rely on conventional when they start going inside, structures.
And that's
or
with Kenwood
buildings.
specifically, or is that Motorola also?
Well, I just know the Kenwood's radios.
The state system is designed as a mobile-only system. It's not designed for portable everywhere coverage. So that's whether you have ABC brand, it's a mobile coverage. Now, fortunately, some locations might have terrain or towers that change that, but that's what it's designed as, mobile system.
Did you have anything else to add? Sorry, I asked you a question rather than let you speak.
Yeah, I would, I've heard a lot of these issues, and, just kind of recounting where we're at up to this point and where we came from. Of course, we all, back at the original issue, it was a scan issue. That a firmware update was fixed by Kenwood Corporate. That was received by us early January. Their radio tech, Aaron Kelly, tested it several weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, and he deemed it sufficient, deemed to move forward with it, reinstall the radios. We put the new firmware update in Richwood, who's been using them since day one. They worked fine, no issues whatsoever, and as the Commissioner said just last week, I checked with them and they said they're fine, they're flawless for them. Next step, we moved to Summersville. We tried 2 or 3 of their guys first, just to test it out, make sure it worked. They deemed it fine. We reinstalled in the rest of them, and talked to Chief just last week, and he said the same thing. Everything's working fine. It's good for them. We did the same test with the Sheriff's Department, with Process Server Odell and Deputy Proctor. They tested them. It was my understanding they felt everything was sufficient, and we moved forward with it, and then here we come to these issues. I would say I've had them in our vehicles. I've drove around the county. I've tested them on digital. I've tested them on conventional. I have a spreadsheet here. I can not find a difference. So I can't find a technical reason. If it's a preference reason, that's something I can answer. If it's, if they don't like how dials are set up or knobs, or that's something I can't answer. And I agree with the sheriff. If they're not comfortable with it, then they're not comfortable with it. It's just as simple as that. But as far as a technical reason, I can't find an issue. And we beat this to death. I spoke to Aaron just Monday night and asked him if the radio he's had and used, if he's had any issues, and he said it's no issues. He can find no problems with it on what he's using. So that's just where I am. I'm stuck here. I wish we weren't here. Like I said before, whenever we got this grant, I was the most ecstatic person in the world. Now I'm the most miserable person in the world because of this grant, because I want it to work, and I want it to work right. And we have a follow-up grant that we got for the fire departments for mobiles as well, and it's been on hold trying to bring resolution to this. So that's pretty much where we stand at the moment.
Just a question. We originally went with the Kenwoods because we anticipated it to be the same service, but it was a cheaper rate. Should this commission go with switch course and go back to Motorola, instead instead of having 30, you have 22, for example. Where the cities are involved, do they have priority? Do we have priority? Who's going to get shorted? Who's not going to get their full department equipped?
I mean, it was a countywide grant, it wasn't specific to agencies, so if you would have done that to begin with, you would have proportionally cut back on each agency. You know, at this point, as far as this grant that we have, after we was told we was going to move ahead with the sheriffs, that they seemed fine with it, you know, I notified our state grant administrator that everything looked good now. We'll probably be looking for our, you know, doing our payment request soon. I notified Laudamus, who's been sitting on the $150,000 bill, that everything looked good, we were moving forward. And, you know, so I don't know that we have a legitimate way to try to give back those radios, or I don't know. I mean, you're in uncharted territory here.
Right.
If they would take them back, or if, you know, if they would say that it's been deemed sufficient, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I was kind of rolling this around in my mind last night and this morning, and I need to call the state grant administrator to see if we could do some, try to say this properly, do some wiggle room with the fire grant that we have and the current grant we have, and move some radios one way and different radios another way, if you understand what I'm saying. I don't, that's something that they would have to give us approval to do. That might be a possibility. That's something I'd like to get an answer for and see if we could do it that way.
The thing of it is, John, I mean, this is not nothing towards you. I mean, this is nothing there. Don't take it that way from me. But if your grant is already locked in, keep your radios. The only thing we're going to do here, I mean, and I think I've got the blessing of the sheriff and chief, we're going to put the Motorola's back in the county cars. And if we don't have the money, grant money or whatever, to buy the portable radios, we're going to come up with it. I mean, not to mess up your thing, I mean, which is great. And you have an opportunity to get for the rest of them, that's great. We don't want to mess that up. The only thing is me personally, I'm not going to ask a deputy to use something that he's not 100%. I mean, just like the very first day we had these things, we had a murder down at Drennan. We couldn't even talk back up here. If it hadn't been for the state trooper, we couldn't even communicate. And Kingwood is, and I've been here however long this has been going on, and I've never saw a representative from them people. I mean, if I was having a $150,000 problem, I'd have my hiney rump in here seeing what I thought. I mean, that's the way I feel about it. This is nothing towards you in any way, shape, or form. But you go ahead with your grant as far as I'm concerned. Lyle Neal right here, as far as I'm concerned. You go on with your radio thing, and some way we're going to get radios for these deputies. I mean, it's not fair to you to take and ruin your grant for the rest of the people, for the fire department and everything, if they're happy. And when I called up to Morgantown, I talked to them up there, they're happy with them, but they're just like the city of Summersville and Richwood. They're only in a confined area. We're all over this county, down in the holler, down at the coal mines, we're everywhere. But in Morgantown, they're working wonderfully because they only have it's a large area, but it's basically a confined area. And they're just not working here.
They don't have the holler space.
They don't have a holler. They don't have Green Valley and Belva and 20 Mile.
Where you don't have any cell phone or anything else. Has there been any investigation as to the cost of these mobile units?
I haven't.
How many and what the cost would be?
Are you talking mobiles or portables?
Well, portables is what I meant. Okay.
Because they seem to be happy with the other ones. I mean, we got enough of them left over that we can surely come up with what we need, 15 or 20.
We can, but Sheriff, how old are those radios? Aren't they 20 years old now? I mean, we got $150,000. I'd rather fight the grant, state grant office to get Motorola's rather than buy Kenwood's that's going to sit in Sean's office.
Yeah.
And again, Sean and his team have worked nonstop on this with Aaron, with the sheriff,
Absolutely.
and everybody.
I mean,
and it's not against Sean, it's not against the sheriff, but when, I've had deputies see me and stop and talk to me and show me, you know, they'd call into dispatch, and then have to call on their cell phone to be able to be heard and actually communicate with the office. I really think we need to consider really fighting with the grant office, with whoever the radio might not want to take back whatever, for half the Motorola's would get us Kenwoods, because otherwise we're just pissing $150,000 in the wind. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, Lyle. It's just that I think it's worth the fight to go ahead and try and get the Motorola's we can for in the cars.
Commissioners, I mean, just to add to that as well, I mean, we had some hiccups early on with this radio system. That got ironed out. You know, Sean has been flawless on trying to communicate and get these radios where they need to be at. I know he's communicated a lot. I've received emails back and forth with where he's been communicating with them. But it's just, you know, it's like Commissioner Neal said, if the deputies are telling me they're not comfortable with them, I'm in no position to say that's what we're using. Because this is something that is a lifeline out on the road when they may not have backup maybe 20 minutes away. So it's absolutely peerless that they're able to identify their communication or their location and communicate. But you know, I know that Sean's worked tirelessly on it, and with our IT guy as well. But the guys are telling you know, me and the chief at this point now they're really running around using them, that they're not working as well as what the Motorola's was. So, you know, we got a, you know, very old radio system that's in place that's equivalent to the one we put in. So I mean, I don't even know what to say about that other than it's just not working.
With that being said, you know, getting the new Motorola's, even if it's half the fleet or 1/3 of the fleet for the deputies in the cities, where Sean, I think it was Sean, you mentioned that the state system's built to be mobiles, not for the portables. But I've asked you before, and you said that there is a system being designed or out there, whatever, that you can bounce your portable off of your mobile to the tower to make that much stronger. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, they make what's called in-car repeaters. And when I flew with it before, it's been 10, 12 years ago, you basically had a more or less a receiver about this big that you put in your car, on your car somewhere, and your portable would transmit back to that. And then, you know, obviously your portables are typically 7-8 watts and your mobiles are typically 40 watts, give or take, somewhere in there. So you have more power. At that time, it was tested with, during that time, Greenbrier County Sheriff and a couple of their people tested it. It worked. It was a little cumbersome in how you had to switch channels on your portable. As I mentioned before, that technology has probably changed a lot since then. Maybe an option, maybe a possibility, something that could be explored. I wouldn't say what the cost would be per vehicle. I can't remember that long ago, and it certainly wouldn't be the same now anyway.
Because I agree with Commissioner Neal, we need to worry about these portables too. But where this money's only for the mobiles, if we can get adequate mobiles started in the fleet, reapply for what we need left next year or whatever, then that way we can start looking at the portables and make sure they match up with the mobiles. And then, I mean, unless I'm thinking wrong, I mean that's a huge improvement in the safety of our deputies.
My question with all this that I've done on my research is, you know, coordinating with the state police and talk to them about their radios. What kind of system do they use? Because they seem to just be able to talk everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
they talk to us utilizing the siren system.
Yeah.
State system. Yeah, and they do have some of our conventional channels, but majority of the time they're using the siren system wherever they're at through the county.
Yeah, and that's when they coordinate and you know, speak with Beckley wherever they might be at.
Yeah.
Okay, but what?
I mean, even with their handhelds.
Radio are they using? Are they using Motorola?
I mean,
I think
because their handhelds seem to work, you know, equally as well as their.
I think state police is using Motorola brand right now.
But that's what I mean, you know, I know their mobiles, of course, they're going to go through siren, but their handhelds, they told me, works just as equally as well. I mean,
As far as cost go, and again, these quotes were almost 2 years ago when we first started this grant, but the quotes for a portable radio at that time would have been approximately about 3,200, 3,300. I would guess you'd throw another couple hundred on that, just guessing. So I'd say you'd probably want to look in the range of 3,500 a piece per portable. Mobiles were slightly less. New mobiles in the Motorola range would be probably 3,000 to 3,200, 3,300 range. So typically portables are a little bit more expensive than mobiles. That's, again, just
And that's
kind of
3,500 for a Motorola
Yes.
portable. What was the Kenwood? I can't.
Kenwood portables of the same level.
Yeah.
Nettie Fire Department just bought some. Kessler's Fire Department bought some Kenwood portables in the range of 1,800.
Yeah.
So almost a third to a half less.
Right.
What I would, what I said a minute ago, I'm going to make a call to the grant administrator and just kind of ask that question, if we purchase Motorola brand mobiles, again, we're talking mobiles under the grant, with the newest grant we have, and we reallocate those towards the sheriff and just transfer the Kenwoods to the fire side. I mean, they're new, they've never been used but a few weeks here and there. Would they be satisfied with that? Now, all we have to do at the end of these grants is track this equipment, annually track it, where it is, whatever.
Do you have any idea if the fire departments would be open to Kenwood? I know Nettie is, but I honestly haven't talked to the other chiefs about that.
Again, from my testing, they work fine.
Sure.
Again, that's just me. I would think, like you said, Nettie and Kesslers have bought portables. They worked with them. They're fine with them. Back in October, I think it was, during the county association meeting, fire association meeting, when we were talking about the grant, we had some in and tested them, looked at them. Everyone seemed open and agreeable to them at that time. Now, there's been a lot of scuttlebutt here and there, but again, it's hard to answer if it comes down to whether you're comfortable or not.
Right.
City guys are working with them; they're comfortable. County guys are not. It's just, I'm just stuck. I think they would be. I think they would be happy to move forward. If not, we're going to get far fewer radios for the buck for the fire side anyway. So one way or another, they'll get new radios. It's just a matter of if they get more for the apparatus or fewer apparatus getting new radios.
Well, with that, I mean, if the grant office would approve of that, the fire association sign off on it, I guess that would.
Yeah, if they approve on it, it would work. Okay. How many radios are we talking about here? With
Is there an install fee on top of that $3,500? Is that
Total
installed?
for the department.
Yeah.
Motorola, that was,
Including the
remember our
paper server,
original
we
quote,
would need,
Motorola did not include installation, and they were still
Probably
$45,000 more, so
20
you had another 10 to 15,000 potentially for installation. I'm just
Probably
guessing.
22 radio.
I think it was
So you probably add $100 here or there for radio. Some of the stuff, I mean, with everything that's done in the vehicles now, installation might be simple. Some of it can be plug and play. You're using the existing antenna, coax, that should work fine.
You shouldn't have to change out the whole system.
Your existing power supply, you could probably do, so installation might be a moot point. You could probably switch those out fairly simply.
Yeah. So installation all, even if it's 4,000, well, how many is it? It's 20 with us, 14 with the Summersville, and 3 with Richwood?
Are we talking mobiles again?
Officers.
I
don't know what our total is.
I think Summersville has what,
Where Summersville's at right now.
16 or so, 17 maybe.
So let's
They
say
had a new
4.
guy just come in the other day, but I don't know what.
That puts us at $160,000 for every man a radio. or woman, I don't think there's anyone else. But, every officer gets a radio at $160,000. Unless I'm really just grossly underestimating a $500 install per radio cost.
But are we going back to talking about mobiles or portables?
The portables, the $3,500.
Portables, you wouldn't have an installation cost. That's just pull it out of the box program and hand it to that
That's something we can
person.
do in-house. So we're just gonna ship them radios.
Yeah, they can.
Mobiles are
programming
everything that would have
in-house.
installation costs.
If I remember right, Motorola's quote was like $170,000. It was over the 150, I believe.
Yeah, their quote just for the mobiles was 193, not counting installation. But again, we're talking
Yeah.
mobiles. If we're
Just
switching bases to talking
portables
portables,
that
you're
this
looking
grant's
at-
eligible to purchase.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
portables would have to
all
come out of some
Portables
other.
only.
No, the grant was for mobiles only.
Correct, correct. Vehicle radios, mobiles.
That's right. I got my terminology mixed up.
So
So
this
that's 3,300. Well, that should be right at 150.
This particular grant, was it through Homeland Security? Who was it through, Sean?
Yeah, it's the
Homeland Security.
HSGP, Homeland Security Grant Program.
40 of these is $152, $152,000. It's a $500 install each. So I can't figure out where they got their number from. That's including the $500 on top of the 3,300.
The bottom line here is, it looks like we have to talk with the grant administrators and see if there is some wiggle room to go back and change some of these things. And it appears that some of the people are happy and some people aren't with this. Those people that aren't, and just simply explain that we're having issues with some of the ones, and would it be possible to alter it, to change that? I mean, we've got to find this out, okay? And how long would it take to find that out? You know,
Assuming they're in office, get a hold of them, might be able to make that call this morning and catch them. I don't know if they would, if it'd be something they'd want to research on their end, or he would just say, you know, I think we'd be agreeable to that. So that's something we could answer real quick. As far as portables, again, I think we needed portables to begin with, but that's all the grant allowed us was mobiles. So I'd love to see whatever brand of portables, if we're able to get them, if we could find money, if there's, you know, a few dollars stashed away in a corner of the courthouse or whatever.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, as far as, I've tried for 3 years to get grant funding for portables, and it's just not an allowable thing right now under their current rules.
Yeah.
You know, why that is, why that isn't, that's, you know, that's them to say.
Gentlemen, if I could suggest, if there would be a way that I could get a copy of either a contract or a purchase agreement or any documentation that was part of when we did this transaction, maybe I could have a look at that and see if there are some remedies that we could utilize that were part of the original contract. So if I were able to get those, I could have a look at those pretty quickly.
Director Wolford, is that something you can provide?
Should be able to. You're talking about like the original grant documents or?
Anything that would serve as a contract or just the terms of sale or anything like that. There might be some information in there, you know, what our options would be. But in the same breath, I think calling directly might be, I would suggest both.
both,
Sure.
I agree.
We'll look at the small print and call.
And for the record, the county has not spent any of this $150,000.
No, we
Right
haven't.
now, the radios we have are just basically on demo.
So the other question that just come to mind, Sean, and I haven't spoke with the state police about this, but what wattage radios are they utilizing in their vehicles? I know they're Motorola's, but do you know what wattage they are? I know these radios are 40 watt, and you guys tuned them up a little bit, and they're putting out a little more than 40, but
Unless they've done something or add something, a standard APX radio is 40 watt range. That's, and that's what any mobile is, unless you do something different, because that's based on FCC rules. You know,
Right.
You can only have so many wattage allowed on portables, so much wattage allowed on mobiles. or else it becomes a repeater and it has to have its own license. So that's why you have those wattages. So unless they've done something different, it would have to be in the 40 watt range.
Right. I just wonder if they have done something different. I don't know. Something to research and look into, probably I'll make some phone calls.
So this is something we need to put on
Yeah.
my next meeting.
Yeah, and my recommendation would be see if we could do away with Kenwood altogether and see if we can just use these funds for however many motor rolls we can. And then that way, you know, staff half the department and the sheriff can determine, well, if this deputy does this, they need this radio. And, you know, they know how to run their offices and both cities would be the same way. Just see if that's at least an option, unless there's another option we want to research.
Find
too.
other options. Okay.
Yeah, all options
And then go from
that
there.
we're eligible for. Half the county staff's worked on this for a year and a half, and it's the radios. It's not the people, it's the radios. So, if we're good to move it to the 10th, is that okay with everybody?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, we'll go ahead and table that until then. Sean, we appreciate your due diligence between now and then. We'll take a break. Okay, now we are here with Michael Gaynor, who is the Assistant Vice President of Field Operations with GoRail, with a Ask Rail app and Staggers Rail Act. So, Mr. Gaynor, we appreciate your calling in, and let's go ahead and begin, okay?
All right, well, thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate your time this morning and the opportunity to speak about some rail issues. Just by way of background, GoRail is a national nonprofit. We're headquartered down in D.C., and we work in about 30 states. And so I am the state director for West Virginia. I'm based out of Columbus, Ohio. I cover most states contiguous to Ohio. Our board is comprised of the 7 largest railroads, including CSX and Norfolk Southern, that operate there in West Virginia. And we really work to do 2 things. One, to build awareness for all the public benefits of rail. And then we also work to build awareness for legislative issues in Washington that would impact local rail service and investment. The railroads are mostly regulated at the federal level, a little bit of each on Charleston, and as you know, not too much at the local level. And so really just 2 things that I wanted to update you on today. One is the Ask Rail app. I don't know if you're familiar with this or if your local first responders are taking advantage of this. Hopefully they are, but if not, then we've got the opportunity for them to do that. And so the Ask Rail app has been around for about 4 years now. Although CSX just came under the umbrella of the app about a year ago, they had their own app prior to this. And what it does is all of the larger railroads, they pull their load data into that app. And so if you were to have a derailment there in the county when your first responders arrive, if they've got the app on their smartphone or whatever smart device they carry in the fire engine, every rail car has a number prominently displayed on the side of it, and they just put that number into the rail car, and it'll immediately tell them what the contents of the car are. If it's flammable, if it's hazardous, if it's a toxic inclination scenario, it will give them special instructions to fight in a fire, and also the emergency contact information for the railroad, as well as allow them to access the manifest for the entire train. Again, it's a free service provided by the railroads for all first responders. And the flyer has a website on it, www.askrail.us, and that's where local first responders would go to sign up for the app and to get access to that. And so as your local first responders, fire, police, even the emergency manager for the county, there's actually even a special version out for dispatch centers. As they look to sign up for that and have any questions, I'm happy to be a resource for them if they do. And then the second thing that I just wanted to mention today was an event coming up later this year in October. That is the 40th anniversary of the Staggers Rail Act. And so the Staggers Act was authored by Harley Staggers, who served West Virginia for about 36 years. And he drafted legislation up in 1980 that partially deregulated the railroads. Prior to that, the federal government set rail rates. The federal government move the railroads to a market-based system where the market determined what the rates were, where the trains went, and where future investments were made. And so railroads deregulated in 1980, these same years trucking, and about 2 years after the airline industry. And it really ushered in a rail renaissance. Prior to the Standards Act, about 20% of all railroads in the U.S. were in bankruptcy. Since Staggers, about $710 billion in private capital has been invested into the freight rail network. Today's average rail rate, when you adjust for inflation, is about half of what it was 40 years ago. Meaning today's rail customer can move almost 2 cars for the price of one 40 years ago. So a pretty substantial event coming up this year. As you might imagine, most of the members of Congress that signed on to that legislation 40 years ago are no longer there. And so we're using the anniversary and commemorating the anniversary as an event to remind current members of Congress how the current system is working. And so we've got a letter that we're working towards 1,000 local and state legislators signing on to, including chambers and economic development groups, that we're going to be sending off to Congress later this year. And it's our hope that the commission might consider signing on, either as a body or as individual commissioners. Any questions that I can answer?
I don't believe so. The only recommendation I might have is just so that we can investigate this a little bit further. We do appreciate your presentation and the letter that you did send beforehand alongside your stuff on the app. But if you could just send us a little bit more information about the letter itself, that would be appreciated. Our next meeting is June 10th, and we could look to do action then.
Sure, absolutely. And I can send you some background on the Staggers Act. And then, of course, locally, Margaret Staggers, her father is the individual that drafted that legislation. I was in Charleston earlier this year, actually right before the lockdown. Other legislators have already signed on to the letter, including Margaret Staggers, so she should certainly be a resource. And some of the counties have signed on as well. And absolutely, I'll send that off to Mary.
Yeah, that would be greatly appreciated. And Margaret actually serves 3 precincts of Nicholas County as a delegate, so we do know Margaret. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's good. That's good. Unless you have anything else, yes, if you could send that information, that would be great. And like I said, our next meeting is the 10th, and we can look forward into it more then. And on the app, on the thing that you sent, the www.askrail.us, that's the website for first responders to go and get signed up. Did I understand you correctly?
They just need to fill out the application. There's a review process, and essentially that review process involves the local railroad has to sign off and say, yes, this is a legitimate fire department or county emergency manager. It's just they're going to make sure people with bad intentions aren't trying to get access to chemical loads or something like that.
Understood. So that includes fire departments, police, ambulance services, and OES centers.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very good. That's very appreciative of the industry doing that.
Yeah, they've got about 6,000 fire departments nationwide already signed up and taking advantage of the app. Advantage is the 20,000, so we still have some work to do to take advantage of it.
Yeah, understood.
I remember it's just been 2 or 3 years ago the derailment that was down in the Montgomery area that caught on fire, and it was a pretty big mess for a while.
You're right. I remember that. It was involved kind of a big evacuation there for a little while.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Mr. Gaynor, we really appreciate your calling in, and like I said, Mary or Patty One will be getting a hold of you concerning the next meeting, and if you can send that information in, that should be all we need for now.
All right, well, Commissioners, I appreciate your time this morning and consideration on the weather, and as always, please keep Bill Rail in mind as a resource for any rail questions that you have in the future.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, recess. We don't have anybody for public comment, period. But before we close, is there any business that would like to be discussed by the commission?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. Is that okay? First of all, I'd like to thank everybody in the county for doing such a great job through this pandemic thing. For us to have 26,000 and some people in our county, we've only had 9 confirmed cases. 8 of them or 7 of them is already healed up. One's almost healed up. And we unfortunately had 1 death due to the fact. And I just want to thank all first responders, our 911, and especially everybody in this courthouse for all we've all had to go through. I know it's been upsetting to the community to come here and come through one door. And they got aggravated, and we got aggravated, but we all managed through it. And my second thing is please, people, fill out your census for our county. I'll be first to tell you, I never knew how important the census was to this county until I got here in this position. But please just take 5 minutes and fill it out if you would. And I want to thank every one of you again for all the things you do for us here in the county, and I'll try to return the favor. On behalf of the commission here, we're all proud of our county to the bottom of our hearts. I want to thank you.
And just to echo Commissioner Neal, I've had a lot of people question me about the census, and thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are trying to do it online, and they have to have their census ID, but they're not receiving that in the mail. I'm waiting for an answer on that, and we will pass that along once we get it. But just please be patient. You have till like August, I think, to do the census, so we still have some time. But if you can't do it online, bear with us, and we'll try and get that information out once we figure it out. Because a lot of people that have lived in the same place for 20 years or 2 months are not getting it, and they're not really giving us an answer yet. But we as a commission are working on it, and we'll get with that. And just for clarification for any needed purposes, the next meeting will be June 10th, not the 3rd, as we have moved it for early voting. Early voting starts the 27th, next Wednesday. Please be a good American citizen and exercise your right to determine the future not only of your county, but your state and your federal government.
Also, I'll add that we officially opened the courthouse. The front door of the courthouse will be open in 5 minutes as soon as I get my key out there. So we have the front door and the back door to the courthouse is open for the public.
Yes, and just please respect our request that only 2 customers be in each office at a time, but you can still wait in the hallway and not have to wait outside. Once the office clears, you can go in and out. And there's chairs throughout all the hallways. If not, there will be. I think they are, but we'll make sure.
We already got it.
Yeah.
I'd also add, do the social distance thing there too.
Yes, please.
Okay, please. Okay, because it's all of us that it's going to affect.
Very good. All right, with that is there a motion to adjourn this regularly scheduled meeting of May 20th, 2020 of the Nicholas County Commission?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion does carry.